So we got to here. Here, I remember reading this. Okay. Who wants to take it on?
I'll go.
I don't know who just said that.
Aaron.
Aaron, all right.
Okay. Iubu rechtu. It is not known.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Medet kafau pakti f. I wasn't sure about the medet here. Is it words? Because that seems weird. It is not known the words method.
Yeah. So yeah, meta is one of these really funny sort of things where it's one of these abstract concepts that if you try to make it literal, it ends up making no sense. It does literally mean word, but it can also be sort of like matter or concept. It's in Coptic, it becomes the way of making an abstract noun. Like true is mei, like ma'at, and truth is met mei, like trueness. So it's basically the equivalent of ness. So this little medet thing comes from a word that means to speak or speech, and it comes to mean a sort of like abstract concept. In this case, it's something like method.
Okay. Yeah, it makes sense in context method. Okay, so there is not known a method to defeat him. Is the pakti part of the word defeat here, or is it like strength?
I think
like, kafau is defeat, right?
Kafau, kefa is to strip. In the sense of like, I mean, in the sense of the basic English word, like take something off of something else. And I think I think it has the exact same idiomatic usage here, in the sense of like strip someone of their title.
Okay.
Is that pehti? I think that's the classifier. So what I think, I would have to go back and look to make sure I'm right about this, but I think this is our word here. And then I think we have here the new, what are they called in Cherney and Grohl? The new object pronoun. So stripping him.
Stripping him of, I mean, his strength of his power, title.
Yeah. Okay. Position, title, power, whatever. I mean, it doesn't. It's not that clear, but
yeah, I'm not sure what's actually even there. If you look at the original text, it's kind of
yeah, me either. I mean,
okay.
It's really, we're really. I mean, the I can see the awe for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Can you say the name again of that pronoun? What is it called?
It is called the new object pronoun. Is it not? Is it not called that? Let me see what I have open here. You think I might have even had it open? No, I was working on something else. Of course, I was working on something else. Wait, where's it gonna be? It's gonna be in the pronoun part. It will all eventually be in our textbook. You know, once I get it in there. It comes fairly late though, because I'm using Lambden's Coptic as my sort of structuring principle. You don't get this sort of like it's chapter 2 in Cherney and Grohl, because they divided everything up into like just categories of things, and I'm deliberately not doing that because it's not actually a good way to learn a language. It's a good way to reference things later, which is how we're using it right now. So that works out. Where is it? It's in here. I should really add sub bookmarks to this because it's just too much. No, this is going to be the subject pronoun, the direct object pronoun. This is it. So section 2.5. Agreement, disagreement on that? Am I right? I mean, I'm not dictating the answer here. I'm just reading it, same as y'all are. If somebody has happened to look at the translation more recently than 2 months ago, you probably know more than I do. Is that what that says?
I'm not sure how else you would interpret it. I mean, there is not known another method to defeat him, to strip him of his.
Stripping his strength. No, that's what it is. I just got it. Yeah, it's 2 words. It's one of the, I mean, that's one of the things that I love about this activity of like reading an ancient language is that it's almost like doing the Sunday crossword puzzle where it's like, you're like, man, I have no idea what word goes in here. And you're like, you try like snake and fish and tree and or whatever. You try like every 5-letter word you can think of. And then you try one and you know immediately it's the right one. Doing this task kind of works like that too. This is stripping his strength. So before he's saying like, I'm going to make y'all watch as I go into hand-to-hand combat with him in front of the whole Ennead, in front of the whole Ennead, because circumstantial, right? EU, one does not know how, essentially, medet, whatever, the way. Medet, I don't know. It makes more sense in Egyptian of stripping his strength. Kefa hechti f. That's what this says. Agreement, disagreement. I can still be wrong, but man, that really clicked for me.
Seems really clean. I mean, it makes perfect sense.
What do you think is missing at the beginning of the line?
N. It's probably not N. It would be nice though. I have no idea. I'm gonna do that thing, that annoying thing that I do, where I say that like, let's just wait until we get to the cleaner parts of the papyrus. Because yeah, I don't even want to speculate. I hate even doing that. You know, like somebody's done all of this. Gardner, presumably, and then and Cherney or whoever, you know, these brilliant Egyptologists have done all this kind of stuff where they're like, oh, it's probably this because this is the most likely thing. I just don't like doing it. I'm guessing they didn't like doing it either, and they were just doing it because it was the thing that needed to be done. But we don't have to. Let's leave it at that. The story makes sense. So Set, who is awesome, is like, guys, I'm going to show y'all who is really the big man around here. I'm gonna take this kid outside because there is no other way of stripping him of his strength.
So far, so good.
Yeah.
So far, so good.
Question on the grammar, if I may.
Great.
Oh, sorry,
Yeah.
Evan. Want to go first?
No, go ahead.
Right. I'm going to ignore the first part with the hand and whatnot, because we already said last time that's a bit wonky. And in line with what you said a moment ago, Christian, as we do a few more pages of this, I think we'll get a better feel for how this author typically writes things. So I wouldn't want to get hung up too much in the beginning. However, the you sentence, you bu rech, not is known. So I'm just curious. I guess first question I have is the rech. Is that a stative question mark, or is this a sedgem 2? I guess, yeah, it is not known. So I guess that is a sedgem 2. Does that normally get negated with the book? Can you talk a bit about what gets negated with what? So that's where my question is going.
So
here, and does the negation fit?
Yeah, I mean, that's like 8 questions, but luckily they all boil down to one pretty simple answer that this is essentially the equivalent of the ni sejm f or ni sejm 2f. So it is the medet is not known. The medet is not known. Or I guess if it were the ni sejm f, it would actually be the perfect form, because there's that weird thing. You might remember from Middle Egyptian where like the sejm nf is the perfect and the sejm f is the imperfect, but then the ni sejm nf is actually the negated imperfect. They kind of flip flop. Yeah, which is just kind of a consequence of the, if you get into their theoretical meaning and the way negation affects the way they work grammatically, it actually does make sense. But it's one of those things that like it will make sense. I'll get it, I'll have that like moment where it's like, oh yeah, of course, because if it's perfective and then you negate it, now it's like, since it's not happening, it's now imperfect. Like it will click for me, and then like 2 minutes later it's gone. I have to just memorize it. So yeah, but this is late Egyptian, so we can be a little faster and looser with those kind of things. So we can actually just say that circumstantial. The medet is not known of stripping him of his strength.
Got it.
That part's good. One extra little thing that I want to put in here is that, what does this word mean?
Which one?
The one that I'm pointing to.
That F?
Oh, to learn?
No.
To learn, yeah. Or
I mean,
know.
to learn, to know. What else does it mean?
Right.
Think forward, not
Does it
backward.
mean thing?
To get to learn, to get to know? I mean, that's
Claudia, you're
important.
thinking of the word chet. Aurelio, you're still thinking in Middle Egyptian terms. I want you to
Okay.
think more in Coptic terms.
In Coptic terms.
What is it in?
To be able, maybe. Is that
Yeah,
right?
ability.
Ah.
Yeah, there's no other way of stripping him of his power. I'm gonna have to fight this dude because there is no other way of stripping him of his strength.
Okay.
And that's the fundamental theme of this story, is the conflict between soft and hard power, essentially. Set is hard power. He's violent, he's strong, he's older. By any account, he has a legitimate claim to the throne because his brother was king. His older brother was king, and his older brother has died. And in just about any monarchical system, the younger brother would theoretically be next in line for the throne. But just about all of the all of the silverbacks in the Ennead want the line to continue with Horus. They want to create the system of sort of ongoing certainty, right? Like I've talked about this a little bit before, but like, let me just ask a question to the group. Let's get a bit abstract and political here. Why do we have hereditary monarchy? Why does that exist?
To have a peaceful transfer of power.
Yes. Why? How does that accomplish that?
The same structures are in place, and the same advisors or trusted advisors are maintained.
Yeah, everyone stays in the same place except only the king, and then the next king is arbitrarily chosen to be this one person, most often the firstborn son of the previous king, right? There's nothing, it's not strategical. I mean, especially in a place like Egypt where there was an awful lot of incest and I'll just leave it at that's bad enough. Let's just leave it at incest. There's a lot of stuff going on that means that the firstborn son of the king might not be all that capable and competent. Also, a person raised in a palace harem is generally not extraordinarily like wise or thoughtful in their decisions. If anybody's watched the worst TV show in the history of the world, Game of Thrones, before it, crashed and burned spectacularly, Joffrey Baratheon was a really great example of this. Like, it's no accident that he's a total piece of shit. He has had the weirdest life of just about any human being who's ever lived. He's not at all especially skilled. The whole point of this system of choosing the son of the king to replace the previous king is just expedience. It prevents a case where all of the other people who have power in the court might vie for the position of kingship. That's all that it's for. So the fundamental theme of this story is to validate. It's kind of a rationalization of that principle, and it's saying that. So Set is essentially representing this idea that the most politically powerful potential legitimate ruler should become the next king. And it's saying instead, no, it should just be the son, so that we can keep this generational continuance going and that we don't have, fighting or whatever. So then getting back to this sentence all of a sudden makes a whole bunch more sense. Set is saying, let me go out, let me take this guy outside and fight him. I mean, presumably Horus is a boy in this situation. And he's saying there's no other way of depriving him of his strength. And there's an irony there, right? Because he has no strength at all. I mean, he's going to get his ass handed to him if Set takes him outside. So yeah. So I don't know. I think there's a lot there. Okay, I think it's sufficiently unpacked. Do we feel that it's sufficiently unpacked?
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was going to say, I thought part of what's going on in this story is there's the competition between the raw power of Seth, but also Horus is clever. He understands how to win all the competitions in an optimal way. And so it's also like at the beginning you said about soft power, it's about choosing a ruler who will rule wisely, not just through strength.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, that's absolutely in there. It's something I left out. But yeah, for sure.
Now, let us start out on the firstborn part. What are Seth and Horus in this one? Are they the uncle and whatever the correspondent embedded extended family members? But isn't it something?
Nephew.
Thank you.
Nephew,
I come from a
uncle
long
and
line
nephew.
of nuclear families, so yes.
I think they're uncle and nephew. I honestly don't know. So sometimes they're brothers, and sometimes they're uncle and nephew. I think based on all of everything that this story is very clearly trying to say, that they're probably uncle and nephew, but I don't know that for sure.
Makes sense. I get the distinct vibe that Seth is older here, which then would make sense.
I mean, that otherwise the arguments they're making don't really hold water, because Horus has to be presented as the son here for Seth to be making the arguments that he's making. Otherwise, he would have basically the same claim.
Yeah. So I think he's probably the uncle, and Horus is the younger direct son of Osiris, which also makes sense politically then, that would be a contention.
Yeah.
Not uncommon.
And not to overly belabor the point, but we have many examples in Egyptian history where brothers inherited the throne. After their brother died, they then became king. Example, I mean, I'm terrible at this, but there are a few Old Kingdom examples. Weren't like Khufu, Khafre, Menkaure, I think they were brothers. Weren't they brothers? Or like Khafre and Menkaure are brothers and Khufu is their father, something like that. My knowledge of history is not precise enough to give you examples, but there are cases where that happened. So this is not just a sort of like an abstract problem. This is a real problem that came up that this story is sort of meant to dramatize as a way of sort of making a political argument of its own.
Well, and not to jump too far ahead, but I mean, in the beginning of line 12, they explicitly say exactly those words. Are we going to give Seth the office while Osiris's son is still living? I mean, they say those exact words, basically.
That's our answer.
There you go.
There we go.
All
Okay.
right.
I'm convinced.
Thanks,
Who wants to read the next sentence?
Can I do a little bit more?
Yeah.
Okay. Aha en Jehuti Herjed and Neph. Then Thoth said to him, am I reading that NF right? Okay.
Yep.
Nen you en Arech pa gareg. So are we not to know? Am I reading that right? I know that's a negation, the nen at the beginning. So
Could be.
no, are we not to know the liar? That's kind of how, sort of word for word, clumsily how I'm translating it. Are we not to know the liar? Like, who is the liar?
Yeah. No, that's a good translation. So just real quick in the chat, I think that was Peter. It just flashed up for me for a second, so I'm going to look at. Remind me what the hair is doing with the Jed NF. Okay, so here, aha, and Jehuti, hair, Jed NF. This is called the pseudo-verbal in Middle Egyptian terms. In late Egyptian onward terms, this is the first present.
Yeah, preposition plus the verb.
Yeah.
Something like infinitive verb.
Yeah. So it literally says, then Thoth upon saying to him, etc. It's called the pseudo-verbal in Middle Egyptian because it's kind of like, it's not why is this pen such a cantankerous thing? Because it's not really like a verbal sentence grammatically. It actually behaves as an adverbial sentence because this is really a noun, and so it's a prepositional phrase. This hair starts disappearing from pronunciation because it becomes reinterpreted as its own thing, really. And it is just it's the first present of Coptic, the first, like disodem in Coptic. You could etymologically analyze it as one, namely me. Wait, is that what that two is? Name one, namely me, is upon hearing. But of course, that's ridiculous. Like nobody actually speaking the language thought of it that way. It just means I hear. So yeah. That's what, and then, so going back to Aaron's question about this, this can be the negation, although the negation normally doesn't appear this way in late Egyptian. I would actually guess that this is the particle ena that is the focalizing or interrogative particle. That often is written with the negation arms confusingly. So that's my guess.
So how would that phrase translate then?
It just turns the phrase into a question.
Oh, I see. Okay. So like should we know? Shouldn't we know? Shouldn't we know the lie? Oh, is this the lie? I said liar, but I'm looking at it now. It's more like lie, the untruth.
Yeah.
The guy. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it is the well, they're both nouns. I think it is the concept. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
How are we to know the false one or the falsehood? Yeah.
And you
so sort of
hear
the pretender kind of in
oh,
terms
good.
Of,
yes.
Of the throne.
Yeah. Are we to know the pretender? That's good. That's a good translation.
Nice.
Yeah.
and the you here, the reed leaf, rope coil, two water things is a pronoun as well.
Yeah, it's one you know. A none.
Okay. Okay.
Yep.
Is that part of the pronoun, or is that more like an a particle? The EU there? And how, and I may be completely off base here, but I'm just thinking back to ene, future 3 in Coptic. That's not what that
Oh,
is.
yeah.
We shall know.
No, that is, yeah, that is what it is. It's we will know. Yeah, it's N. No, I'm just wrong. Yeah, we will know.
So it's
Isn't that what
not
we
a,
said?
what kind of pronoun is it then? If it's not an independent?
It is, so it's you, the particle that introduces the suffix pronoun plus N, and then it's a thing in late Egyptian is often written with 2 N's.
Oh, okay.
That's a good question. Yeah, I just had it wrong because it doesn't make sense to say unknown there. Because then you have you wouldn't do that. You wouldn't put like an independent pronoun and then a prepositional phrase like that. It has to be UN. Good catch, Aurelio. Nice. I never would have noticed my mistake there. But yeah, if you try to put those two things together, they don't go together. They're like oil and water.
Now, can the future 3 go with a question particle? I thought it's more used for like exhortations or.
Later on, it gains this quality of a sort of optative future. I think at this time we can still just consider it a normal way of expressing the future.
Okay, so it's really, shall we know the pretender, to use that?
Yeah.
So I'm sorry. So that's a suffix pronoun then. The we,
Yes.
the N is a suffix pronoun. Okay.
Yeah, let's look back at Cherney and Grill.
And just to quickly say, optive is wish or future.
Yeah,
Sorry.
so often the third future in Coptic has this meaning of like, I shall do this, or
Oh, okay.
would that I do this at some point in the future. In late
Okay.
Egyptian, it hasn't quite been sort of pigeonholed in that way. It can just be a sort of unmarked ordinary future, like I will go.
Oh, okay.
Where are we? Suffix pronouns. There we go. Yeah, there it is. That's what we wanted. Yep, that's it.
Oh, very nice. Okay, thank you.
It definitely threw me off, that double N. But yeah, that's what it is. So yeah, it's just EU plus N. It's just sometimes written as a double N. I mean, there's really 2 ways to go with it. I mean, if you didn't have this, I mean, this decides it, because if it is the third future, then it can only be one thing. But you know, assuming that we didn't have the rest of this, it can be the original thing I said incorrectly was anon, which would basically have the addition of this little oo that doesn't really need to be there, but you know, it's just kind of a phonetic thing. It could show up there. The other case, this ena of the third future, we have an additional N, but that is a thing. Both of those are things that regularly happen. It's really the fact that we have the rest of the sentence that lets us decide for sure that that's what this is. Okay.
So the U isn't part of it, it turns out, or is it?
It's the normal EU. It's the normal EU.
Which means what? Sorry. To be ignorant.
No, you're not being ignorant. That's like, that really is the $32,000. That is the $1 million question of Egyptology, is what does EU mean?
Okay.
Nobody really knows, but it is used in this construction. So, you know, we could have it in a first present construction. If I wanted to say, I am saying, I could, whatever, you know what I mean? I could say, you hair jed, right? I am saying. And then what does the EU mean here? It's really just a thing that the suffix pronoun stands on. because suffix pronouns can't just be by themselves. They're suffixes.
Oh, okay. It's like a dummy thing to put the suffix on.
Yeah, and I think that is, I think a lot of people would balk at that statement because so much ink has been spilt over exactly what EU is. I mean, really, that particle EU is at the core of the whole like standard theory debate in Middle Egyptian. What is EU? If you read anything, any sort of standard theory perspective will tell you that the presence of EU makes a sentence a sort of freestanding independent clause. If you ask Alan, he will say that EU is a sort of referential particle that relates what's being said to the time being. That there is a way of sort of finding a, there's an intersection of that Venn diagram where they end up meaning the same thing. It doesn't have a meaning by itself. It's a grammatical particle. How exactly it works has been the subject of endless controversy. But it just means EU. It's the ev. I mean, it's the EU. It's the circumstantial, right? Later on.
Yeah, it's circumstantial.
It's the ev Coptic.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is that a good way to think about it? Just that it's the circumstantial from Coptic, sort of.
Yeah, except this sentence isn't circumstantial. This is an independent sentence.
Okay. So it's not that simple.
It's not
All
that
right.
simple.
Can I ask another really stupid question?
You can ask whatever question you want, stupid or otherwise.
Okay. So when I hear the word circumstantial, I think of like a legal setting, like circumstantial evidence. That's the only thing I have to tie this word to. But I think circumstantial has to do with like circumstance. Is that right?
Yeah.
So like the setting of the thing going on. This is just happening while you're there or present or something. Is that right?
Yeah. What was the thing? We were reading Onufrius. I mean, shouldn't it be in my history? We were just looking at it. Was it Onufrius? Oh, for Christ's
Sorry.
sakes.
O-N-N, I think. Onufrius.
Shouldn't it come up immediately? We were just looking at it.
Tied with that is the question, why wouldn't I just say Jedi? So like I say, like as opposed to UE Jed. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do see what you're saying. So for one thing, the conjugated verbs have features. They have aspect, for example. So if I say Jedi or Jedini, that has that expresses like time when something happens relative to something else. So it forces a choice.
I see.
Why would you say Iwi here Jed instead of Jed-E? Well, in late Egyptian, Jed-E actually means I said. So there's this reinterpretation of the Sejemef that happens in late Egyptian where it is no longer a present imperfect sentence at all.
I see. Okay.
And then the Iwi here Jed becomes the standard way of saying that. You could a perfectly analogous question would be if you were speaking in English and let's say you're planning to go to the movies later, would you tell your friend, I go to the movies or I'm going to the movies?
Probably I'm going to the movies, yeah.
You would choose that one, right? Because I go to the movies. At some point in the history of English, that would have been just the normal way to say that. But now that has kind of gained this quality of like a general gnomic sort of statement, like it's something that I generally do. whereas the present continuous has this, it means you're doing it in, either at this very moment or in the immediate future. That exact same thing happened in Egyptian. So it went from Jedi to Iwi Herjed in almost exactly the same way. So that's kind of just like the way languages change. There is something called the subject Sejimeth that was originally, the gnomic one. And then so if you say like EU, oh, I can't even remember all of this. Has anyone read like Hulk recently who can say, if you say EU jetty, it's different from if you just say jetty. If you say jetty, it's like it's a subordinate clause, or it is a sort of a perspective type statement, where if you say EU jetty, it just means I say, and it's sort of the standard way of saying it. That's as best as I can remember. Anyway, let's get a really quick circumstantial here, because we just read this yesterday, and I remember specifically seeing one that was just awesome.
There's one in the next sentence in our text, though, just an Egyptian one, late Egyptian one.
Oh, good.
Just a hint. And
yeah, there it is. Let's do it.
Yep.
And I mean, to Peter's question, it isn't, from my impression, it isn't always circumstantial, but I fared very well so far going through the text. Every time when I see a U, to first of all think A is circumstantial from Coptic. It works more often than it doesn't. It's quite helpful. So just think that it means while something else was going on. And I think that's exactly what
cool.
the next sentence.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Of course. Let's do this sentence and see what we get. Who wants to read it?
Can try, although there's something grammatical that I'm not clear about, but let's give it a quick shot. We only have a few minutes anyways. So ist, that's the part that I'm hung up on. Iru, yeah, ist, Iru. Let's get back to that in a moment.
Okay.
To give, ta iaut, the office, n, let's see, n of whom, so the office of somebody.
I messed up on my little
Basically
thing.
Of Osiris.
Yep.
Why is
Wait,
that?
what is that?
That doesn't fit.
That's not correct. It's not in the, this is a mistake.
That's a mistake. So let's take that out.
No, somebody was trying to type the yeah. So yeah, that's
so
not actually
the office of Osiris to Seth, or Set.
Mm-hmm.
And here comes the circumstantial. Iu Saif. So while his son Horus, aha. While his son Horus, I guess, is standing there or is being present or something of that nature. I guess that's what it means. And then comes the next sentence, as usual, in red. So we can stop here.
Yeah, it's a good place to stop.
But
how do I hide this header and footer? Does anyone know how I could do this? Is there a way to view?
Oh yeah, they used to be.
Got it. Got it. Okay.
Awesome. So what do we do with the verb form of at the beginning? Iru. I mean, the meaning is sort of clear. Shall we, because we'll be giving the office of Osiris, Seth, with his son right there, basically. Or well, there's also his son. If I were to go very loosely there, but let's do it grammatically. What is that thing? Ist Iru.
So the east, I'll put aside. I think it's a participle. Yeah, the giver. So how are we to know the pretender? And it's a participle of the word do, right? So the doer of giving the office of Osiris to Set. That's how I read it.
Isn't that a bit weird?
It is a bit weird. The other option that comes to mind is an imperative, which is even worse.
And the give is an infinitive, isn't it? The people.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and that one's very clear.
What else can that iru be? I mean, imperative after is doesn't make a lot of sense to me. That doesn't fit.
It could be, sometimes it's used to write the third future, but we would expect to be followed by a noun. Like the way to form the third future is to say like, ere to whatever, do, ere promesotem, the man shall hear. So that's another thing we could use that for. Although
something interesting here, Christian, I think, I don't know. I mean, I really would want to say something like having given the office of Osiris to Seth, sort of like I just don't know how to make that work grammatically, but it almost feels to me like, just from the logic, right? How are we to find the pretender, something, office of Osiris given to Seth? Something's up here, I just don't know what.
yeah, I don't either.
Maybe that's for next time.
I'm not gonna know next time either. Yeah, I don't know. What does the translation say?
Oh, good point. Let's see. What does the translation?
I mean, you know, when you're really this stuck, it's might as well.
Might as well. I'll look at the Italian one in the meantime.
The English one is the office of Osiris to be awarded to Seth even while his son Horus is still about?
Yeah. Enzo says almost the same.
How does he interpret this too as being a pronoun then?
You mean?
Or no, but then it's still Ieru. It still doesn't work.
Thought about that too, but it's still weird. I guess one question is what can come after ist, typically, and second, what could Iru be? Those would be the two things we would start digging, the two avenues.
Just about anything can come after ist. Iru could be it could be the participle or the imperative. I really want to make it an infinitive, you know, like my instinct is to say like the giving of the office of the office of Osiris to Set. But it can't be that because that would be Iret.
Like, is it make the giving? It doesn't work in English. I think that's the problem.
Yeah, that is a big part of the
sense in Egyptian. It just doesn't translate to English well because we don't like make to do a give. We don't do give, but it's like make a gift. Are we gonna make giving the office to, you know? I think it just doesn't translate to English grammar.
Yeah, I still don't know what that Iru is though.
We're running behind on the other class. Why don't we take it as I'll take it as an assignment.
All right, yeah, see what you can find out. Okay, I'll see you guys in the next one.
In a minute.
In a moment.
See you next week.
Bye, everyone.